Hey guys, wanted to give y'all a quick rundown on the integration harness for the Silverados and Suburbans, all the GMT800 stuff from 03 to 07 Classic. First off, forgive my horrible dialect. I'm sometimes hard to understand, raised in the South. But I've got lots of questions on these, and we're going to walk through the harness, every piece of it. We'll try to make it quick, but we're going to do some explaining. So we're going to start here at the engine. So let's start here at the main engine area. We, unlike the stock Silverado harnesses and stuff that run over top the intake, ours runs to the back of the intake. Everything branches side to side. On our driver's side, we come down. We have one ground here. This is for ignition coils. We run down further. We have your odd ignition coil connector. We have the map on this side. It's extremely long because everybody puts their map in a different location. So you may have to curl that up if you're in the stock location. We come down, and here we have the alternator and your coolant temp. This coolant temp on this side in the stock location is for the Holley only. We have to run a second coolant temp sensor in the passenger head for the stock computer. So we have an alternator here. This covers every alternator option you could have. It even carries the engine on signal for special braking systems. If you have that vacuum assist pump on your brake booster, this is necessary right here. If you're having 05 or later, you could have the possibility of the 2-pin alternator, which is a pulse width modulation alternator. We have an adapter for this. You will also have to run the generator battery charge module, the GBCM, which we'll talk about here in a minute. That's an option. We come back to the passenger side of the engine. Here at the back we have cam sensor. This is oil pressure. If you're running a LS2 or a 58X or just a front cam sensor, we have shielded cam sensor extensions as well. Plug and play. We come down, we have the even ignition coils here. Then we have our IAT, fairly decent length. Keep my son's toys down here under the table. If you want to be lazy and run a math sensor, we also have an extension that you can plug this directly into the math and run that IAT. It works just as well. Some people don't want to keep the math, and I completely understand. So that's that. Then we come down here, and this is the throttle body junction. So what we've designed here is basically a universal harness that can run any drive-by-wire that Holley supports or a drive-by-cable system. We have sub-harnesses for this. Let me grab those. So here we have 3 sub-harnesses that plug right into this. First off, we have your 6-pin. Most 90mm GM 4-bolt throttle bodies use this. If you have the stock 03 to 07 throttle body, you have the 8-pin. And if you want to be crazy and run drive-by-cable, we also offer that adapter. It's plug and play. No changes to the main wiring harness. Then we have a couple AC and oddball items here. This runs over to the AC low pressure on the accumulator at the firewall. Runs on down further. We have your low coolant switch and your coolant reservoir. Not all applications have this. You may or may not use this. And we run a bit further and it circles down to the AC compressor and the AC pressure switch. Well, pressure sensor. The 03 and up use a sensor instead of a switch, and this allows fan control out of the stock ECM along with the air conditioner. This is great system. I highly advise this if you're doing a 99 to 02 harness to upgrade this, but we'll talk about that in another video. And we're fairly done with the main engine. So here we have the injector harness. This uses the Holley injector harnesses. So whatever connectors you have on your injectors, just use the order the right Holley harness, and this plug and play here. These are all 18 gauge, which I'll probably mention again. I'm a big stickler about this because large injectors sometimes suffer on 20 gauge, so it's just a pet peeve of mine. We're fairly done with the main engine area. We're going to run down to all the trans stuff. So again, we're going to run down here, and this is set up for a 60 or an 80E VSS. This will plug into your output speed, or it'll work for four-wheel drive. You can plug it into your extension that's already on the four-wheel drive harness. It's a different part of the engine harness, so no modifications needed there, two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. We go back to a split here, and what we have is up top, here's the passenger side coolant temp sensor. This is so the stock computer can read coolant temp and your gauges will work. You'll have to have another sensor for this. And we're going to run down and get to the neutral safety switch and the ISS and another temp sensor. So we'll talk about the neutral safety in just a sec. If you have an 80E, you've got an input speed sensor. This is what this is for. You don't use this on a 60E, you just wrap it out of the way. Here, this is a additional temperature sensor for the transmission. This relays temperature to the stock PCM. So if you have a gauge on the dash, or you want it just to be logged in the stock computer, you can add a standard GM coolant temp sensor, the LS style or the 3/8 or whatever size they have. As long as it's a GM style resistance, you can put it in your pan or in the test port and run that. You don't have to use this, but it's very nice. So let's get back to the neutral safety switch. We've got another junction here. So what happens here is in 03, they still used the two plug system like the 97 to 03. The ones that were a pain in the butt to get apart. You had to have a hairdryer and all that. So the 03 still came with this. We support this neutral safety switch. Another plug junction here. And if you've got an 04 or newer, you've got the single style neutral safety switch. This is a much better unit, but these work identical. They're just physically different. You can swap, run whichever one you choose. If you're cobbling something together, just get the harness you need, or you can swap neutral safety switches. They work the same. So that's the base of the transmission stuff. Down here on the back, we have one more run. We have the crank sensor. This is the only non-genuine connector on the entire harness. And if you guys bought anything from me at Tick, you might be used to these. These are designed for 24X and 58X. No snipping, no cutting, plug and play. I had these specially designed. Crank sensor. And here you have the oil level sensor in the pan. And the starter. You can run the standard starter you find on the GMT800 stuff, or This connector here will plug directly into the LS3 style starters and later that have the plug built into them, so you can run either. Let's walk back towards the PCM now. So the stock truck and SUV stuff ran the harness directly over a middle open area, just hanging out on top of the engine, and it drives me nuts. So our engine harness from the stock PCM runs along the firewall and swings into the fuse box here, so it's up, off, and out of the way. This is good for twin turbo guys or just being neat. I can't stand the GM loom that ran right across the middle of everything. So we get over here and this is going to look like a disaster, but this is all plug and play. You have three main connectors under the fuse box. You have 152, 100, and 153, which is four-wheel drive. So these excuse me, they snap into the fuse box and plug directly into the stock harness. There is differences in C100 on a few year models, and we cover that with what I call a YMK or year model key. This will swing over and bolt, or snap in on an existing hole in the fuse box. And we have a connector here for each year model you choose. 03 to 04, 05 is different, and then 06 and 07 is different. And that fixes all the wiring differences on C100. So when you order, you let us know what year model you got, or you can purchase all the year model keys. You change the harness down the road to a different truck, swap your model keys, and you're plug and play, ready to go. So over here we have cruise control. This will plug directly into a cable cruise module. We are still working on a drive-by-wire cruise setup. We don't have anything yet, but it's promising. There's a spare wire here, just planning on what we need for the aftermarket cruise. We hope this works. We have the pedal connector. This plugs into the stock pedal. Your stock pedal runs a harness outside through the firewall. This plugs directly in. Your stock pedal works fine. We have fans right here. This is fans based on the stock PCM. This saves outputs from the Holley and allows you to have AC control and speed control on your stock fans, and they'll work perfect. We have a very unused option here, and it's not built into the rest of the harness, and this is a very rare option. You'll need to personally contact us for this. Suburbans and a truck with dual batteries have an ignition source and ground over at the passenger firewall that either turns on the secondary battery or the heat bypass circulation for rear heat. It turns it on with ignition as well. We can make this for you. We don't mind, but I didn't think it was worth running all the way through the harness for maybe 2% of people that need it. So, and here's a nice feature. We have flex fuel built in. This is ran from over here with a good length on it. The stock flex fuel sensor is under the cab, under the driver. So this has enough length to reach the stock location, or if you're running it over here at the engine, you have plenty of room to reach wherever you want to put your sensor. The flex fuel also shares its signal with the stock PCM just for monitoring issues. You don't have to use it, but it is also tied in the stock PCM. And it also has a pull-up resistor already on this circuit to 5 volt. So if flex fuel isn't enabled in the PCM, it won't have a pull-up circuit. So There's an external pull-up circuit for this as well. You shouldn't have any problem running flex. It runs to the Holley and the stock PCM. And that covers most of these connectors. This goes directly into the fuse box, just like the stock harness. There's no relays built into this Holley harness because we have a relay box right here. So everything relay oriented, it uses stock relays, stock positions for powers and all that. And then we're going to run down here. Before we get to the PCM, we need to talk about the GBCM, or the Generator Battery Charge Module. So if you have the 2-pin alternator that you find on some 05 and newer stuff, you've got a little current sensor wrapped around the negative cable, and that is actually its own computer for the alternator. And this will plug directly in for the 2-pin alternator. If you're running a 4-pin, we simply have a bypass that plugs in and allows the 4-pin signal to work stock. This also carries the engine on signal as well for your upgraded braking systems. Not all GBCMs have that, but this is wired for it. So we get down here, your main power cables are built into the harness. I'm waiting on a fuse cap. Distributors are behind right now. You have your main power, main ground, and this is a ground to anything other than ignition coils in the engine. All your switches and sensors that just use a chassis ground are all tied to this, as well as the stock fuse box ground. They're all tied to this, and this will go directly on the ground with the Holley ground. And then we get down to the stock PCM connectors. These are custom put together by myself. They're nothing special, a little bit of laser etching and some paint, but these will bolt right in. And basically this entire harness is plug and play. Stock PCM stays in the stock location. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We do offer battery connectors, battery studs for this. Let me grab those. We have high quality studs for your battery. You can remove the stock bolt and use the stock cables, and then have an area to hook up your power and grounds. This comes with all the harnesses. So now we're going to touch base on where the Holley ECM is located. The Holley branches off at this main point behind the intake, and you have quite a good bit of distance down here to your Holley connectors. We have everything loomed separate a little ways back. This is just an organization deal. You've got your transmission, throttle body, drive-by-wire throttle body, and pedal. Your J1B is fairly straightforward. We also use 18 gauge wire on injectors, so if you're running a Dominator or an HP and want to run large injectors, you're not going to have any issue with draw. I really started doing that on all my harnesses now. Then we get over to J1A, which has a couple additions here. So first off, let's talk about the wideband. The wideband is disconnectable back here at the main harness. I hate putting this through the firewall anywhere. It drives me nuts, especially after you've got an entire Holley harness. So we've got this little tiny unsealed Metro Pack, since it's inside the vehicle, to allow for easy plug and play installation of your wideband. This works great. I've done this on a bunch. Same style connectors. It's just an unsealed connector and much smaller. Works perfect. We've got the standard Holley 7-wire shielded cable. This is plenty of length. This runs very well to the passenger stock O2 location. It fits there, but it's your free will to put it wherever you want. So we have 2 loose wires here for Your option to use white wire is your flex fuel sensor. It's not pinned because not everyone's going to use this. And your green wire is the AC compressor on signal you can use for an IAC kick. These are here if you want them. These do not have to be used, but it's a good option. So we run up here, we have the power tap that you see on all the new Holley harnesses. I don't run a chassis ground back here because there's already a ton of wires back here, but we do have key on 5-volt and sensor ground, which is going to be your most used options. The chassis ground I may add later if I update these harnesses. I'm not sure yet. So we have the can connection ready to go, all pinned in. And I know y'all are staring at this like, what is this? So this is the crank sensor setup. This is the stock PCM crank sensor wire. And this shares the signal with the crank sensor on the Holley. Now, if you're wondering why I have a connector on this, this works perfect for 24X applications, but if you run a 58X or who knows, maybe you're putting a 2JZ in a Silverado. Some crazy people trying to do that right now. But you can take this apart, leave this. This still runs the crank sensor for the Holley. If you follow our Facebook page, you will see that we found out how to synthesize or simulate a 24X signal using an output from the Holley. So no matter what engine you stick in here, we can make the stock gauges work. We can make it think it's got a 24X engine in it. No big deal. We offer a sub harness for this that will be plug and play, so you can run whatever engine you choose. And if you want to move right up here, we have the standard inputs and outputs. This is not Holley colors because I'm not buying a bunch of gray and white striped when I don't use a few feet of it. It drives me nuts. But these are pinned the exact same as the outputs. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H are still the same. I moved them back here a little further, so because part of it comes out of J1A, the other part comes out of J1B, and I didn't want these connected and unable to move. I may redesign this and run it up with J1B so it all works over here closer to the computer. I hate having stuff branching out in the middle. And if you'll notice, there's no relays or anything or fuses you need to put over here. This all uses the stock fuse box of the truck, so there's no relays in your way. It's just plug into the computer. And you'll see my suppliers slacking again. Main power cables here. Waiting on some Ducon connectors that should have been here a week ago, but haven't got them yet. That's all I really lack other than the fuse cap back at the other side. So that's the gist of the entire Holley integration harness. It's quite a large harness, but it's plug and play on Silverados, Suburbans, Avalanches, Tahoes, any of the GMT 800 stuff from 03 to 07 Classic. This will not, let me repeat, this will not work on your 99 to 02. The electrical systems are so far different. Don't even try. If you call me and tell me, hey, I bought this, I'm going to put it on my 99 Silverado, I'm going to tell you you wasted your time and return it because it will not work. It's completely different electrical system on the truck side. So we're currently designing that harness right now. I don't have an ETA because I have plenty of these to make right now. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Sorry for the sketchy, jumpy, coughing video, but that's it, guys. Thanks a bunch.